Hey, and welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. We appreciate you being here. We're brought to you and presented by FanDuel, and we are going to be going over our Big Ten performance tiers from Week 10. Going to be pretty quick in this one. I've kind of taken my time with this here recently, but I'm trying to do some individual game recap videos as well, so you can check those out over at JR's Big Ten Football News. Probably have those all out by the time this one comes out as well. That's kind of my secondary channel where I'm kind of doing more like specific team focused stuff. I'll still do some of that on the Big Ten Huddle, but overall, we'll have a good amount of like news, rumors, storylines, and stuff like that over there. All right. Let's get into the elite teams of the Big Ten, and I also mentioned their opponent this week and where I had them. So, first team I have is Ohio State. They're not the most elite team; it's just the team I'm starting with. So, Ohio State was elite. They did get into it with Penn State at halftime. It was 17-14. I believe that score was very misleading of what was actually going on in the game. Ohio State allowed a one drive where Penn State moved the ball down the field and got a touchdown. Ohio State responded immediately with a touchdown of their own, and then they had a touchdown of their own before that, and then right after Penn State scores their touchdown, they have a fumble. Penn State scores a touchdown right after that. After a long drive by the offense, they go into halftime, and then Ohio State comes out the second half, blitzes them 21-0. Completely, Penn State had until the last drive of the game like 1 yard in the second half. So Ohio State completely destroyed Penn State in this game. They had one drive, and then they did get a turnover with a fumble where the Ohio State ball carrier was just not carrying the ball very well in the second quarter. But overall, outside of that second quarter, they absolutely destroyed Penn State in that one. Julian Sayin looks like the Heisman frontrunner at this point. Jeremiah Smith with a pretty crazy, not crazy, but a pretty wild catch off a tip ball there. Kind of one-handed, he brought it in and was able to catch it with both hands. But just overall, good performance here by Ohio State, and we're going to put them in the elite category. I don't know if I would always say elite for a performance like that, but based on this week and kind of what we saw, it's going to be elite because Illinois and Indiana are in there as well, and they kind of went through some similar stuff with them. Penn State is in the concerning category, and it's not so much it was just concerning because of the game. It's concerning because I don't know if this Penn State team makes it bowl right now. Like, we kind of been talking about that for a little bit, and if Penn State played Ohio State close, like, you'd have some more hope about, like, maybe being able to beat Indiana, maybe being able to beat some of the other teams they have left at the end of their schedule, but there's not all that much hope right now. I mean, they are going to have 3 winnable games at the end of it based on their talent versus the other team's talent. But for Penn State, like, their odds on stuff has just completely diminished. They don't have any odds to win the Big Ten. Obviously, they don't have any odds for the playoffs or anything like that on FanDuel. Like, if I'm looking for odds to bring up for a team right now, can't find them because they're just not out there because there's literally no odds for Penn State. Like, we'll get win totals and stuff like that this week, I'm sure, but it's pretty concerning for Penn State fans, and FanDuel doesn't have any odds for them. So we'll get to odds for the national championship after we're done talking about Indiana, who is also elite after going on the road and destroying Maryland. They'd have a little bit of issues early in the game, and you could argue that because of Indiana's depth concern, or not depth concerns, their injury concerns, they don't have any concerns with their depth. Their depth played very well in this game. So you could say that, like, overcoming that they were the lone elite team, and I think if somebody were to make that argument, I wouldn't argue with them too much. I'm just trying to go based on, like, where the team is at, how they performed this week. And overall, I think that Indiana and Ohio State both blew out their opponents after facing a little bit of adversity. Fernando Mendoza throws the interception early on. It's kind of a close game there in the first quarter, but eventually 20-3 at halftime, and then Indiana pulls away and destroys Maryland. Although Maryland did move the ball a little bit in the second half, it obviously was not enough to do anything against Indiana as they turned them over and just did a number of things, just completely destroy it completely destroyed Maryland in that game. I think they scored something crazy, like 3 touchdowns in 2 minutes or something like that. I'll have to go back and check it. But yeah, just elite performance by Indiana here, especially with missing guys and the confidence they have in their depth. Maryland, I put in the awful category. You can't be at home and have a 3-0 lead on a team and then lose 55-10. Just can't happen. I'm sorry. I don't care if it is Nick Saban, Alabama. Just can't happen. Awful performance, putrid, terrible, possibly the worst performance of when you take into account where they were and the injuries of Indiana and everything else and your team and who you have. Terrible performance. Just not good. Ohio State and Indiana are currently at the top of the odds to win the national championship on FanDuel. Ohio State plus 230, Indiana plus 500, and they should be locked into the elite category pretty much in the performance tiers the rest of the season with who they play, how little they're going to probably be challenged by some of these teams to end the year. Michigan, obviously, the biggest test there as it is a rivalry game for Ohio State, but these two teams, they're at the top of the odds right now to win the national championship, and anybody that is denying that Indiana cannot win the national championship this year is stupid. If you're somebody that's like, I don't know if they will, obviously, like we don't know if anybody will. But if you're like, no way, Indiana's not a national championship contender, they're all fake. I'm sorry, like you just don't know what you're talking about. Either you're stupid or you're ignorant, one of the two. If that's the case, you cannot watch this Indiana team the way they play, and you can't even use like the depth concern. Like some people have said, like, Indiana, I don't know if they have the depth to be able to do that. You've seen their depth this past 2 games. You saw their depth in this game going up against a team, albeit bottom tier of the Big Ten team with the way they performed this season. But to start the year, they were pretty good, and they went on the road to them this week. So, I cannot entertain the idea that Indiana can't win the national championship. I cannot entertain that idea. It does not mesh for me. So Illinois, I also have in the elite tier. Illinois faced Rutgers, and you did have Luke Altmaier throw an early interception in that game, but the only reason that Rutgers scored a touchdown on that one because it was late in the game. Backups were in and everything. So the majority of this game, Illinois was just completely destroying Rutgers. Their defense got challenged last week against Washington. They responded very well on this one. Ethan Kaliakmanis, the league leader in passing yards. He had 253 passing yards and 1 touchdown, but he was 25 of 45, pretty inefficient and was not able to score the ball. They were not able to punch it in the red zone the times when they got in there, other than the very last time. And I think Illinois being able to run Luke Altmaier so much more really helped them. He had 88 yards on the ground, and for them to kind of lean more into that was a really good decision. And then also the amount of pass breakups they had in this game was very, very, very encouraging to see from Illinois. So great job by Illinois here. Bad game by Rutgers. Rutgers I have in the awful category. Sorry. It's just it did not look good in this game, and I don't think any Rutgers fan would try to argue that it did, because I'm not gonna harp on it because I don't wanna, talk about Rutgers like that. I like Rutgers. I don't want Rutgers to be awful, but they did not look good. So, um, next one here, let's go to Michigan and Purdue. So this is an interesting one. I have Michigan in my concerning tier 4, which is the second worst tier. I have Purdue in my questionable tier. So even though Michigan won the game, I have Purdue a tier higher than Michigan. And the reason I do is because if you're this Purdue team, you're like, okay, hey, we hung with Michigan. Like, yeah, we didn't get our Big Ten win. I don't think you're going to get a Big Ten win. I think you've come to terms with that at this point if you're Purdue. But you want to see the fight. You want to be able to see staying in the game. And you went up against a Michigan team it's concerning that they did not blow out Purdue. But what is more concerning for this team is the injuries that they have right now. And this Purdue team, with the injuries that they have, Jayshon Barham, Donovan McCauley, all their linebackers, Jimmy Rolder, Cole Sullivan were out for this game as well. Justice Haynes is out. Like, really the only bright spot you had in this game was Jordan Marshall being as dominant as he was. Bryce Underwood was not good throwing the ball. I mean, Jordan Marshall had all 3 touchdowns for you in this game. He ran for 185 yards, 3 touchdowns, 25 carries. You had to give 25 carries to Jordan Marshall in this game. The offensive line was good, but it was really Jordan Marshall basically carrying this team on his back. And while that works against Purdue, I don't think that works against other teams that Michigan has on their schedule. So let me pull up the Michigan schedule really fast. I don't think it's a really tough schedule, so it may work with other teams. I don't think that works at Northwestern. You're going to be in Wrigley Field, I think, in that one. I don't think that works at Northwestern. I think Northwestern has a better run defense than Purdue, obviously. it might work out because your defense might be able to turn over Preston Stone all that much, but I it might work against Maryland, but Maryland also is really good at getting turnovers, and it's both at Northwestern, at Maryland. Those should be easy wins, but as we know, Michigan does not play as well on the road as they do at home, and in this one, like, this is supposed to be their bread and butter. This is supposed to be a game where they beat Purdue 34-7. They didn't. Like, this was a letdown game for Michigan, and I think if you're a Michigan fan, you're pretty concerned after this one. Not necessarily just with the way the team performed, but with all the injuries and everything you have. So, tough stuff here for Michigan. I'm having them in the concern category. I know it's a little bit of a hot take, but if there's a Michigan fan out there that wants to tell me why you're not concerned, please do. I would love to hear the reason why. Because if I'm a Michigan fan, I'm very concerned after that game. USC and Nebraska. I have USC in the satisfied category. I think that if you're USC, you're like, we got the road win. That's all that matters, right? We got the road win. That's all that matters. I think Nebraska was better at times in this game. And I think you also have a lot of confidence in Jada Mayava now, who had a gritty win. He did not play his best ball for the majority of this game, but he had a gritty win. He was able to make the plays when you needed to. He was 9 of 23 in this game. Not good. Not good passing the ball. 135 yards, 1 interception. But and you gave up a ton of rushing yards. Emmett Johnson had 29 carries for 165 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown. Like, he looked like Jeremiah Love at times out there. But you were still able to pull out the win. Dylan Raiola got hurt. I think that if Dylan Raiola plays, maybe this game is a different story. But I think if you're USC, you're just satisfied. Like, you got the win. You got out of there. Good job. That's what you needed to do. And Nebraska's a better team than what they look on, like, the rankings and stuff. But if you lost that one after the way they lost to Minnesota, people saying that Northwestern actually looked better in that game against Nebraska, don't think I necessarily agree with that, but that's what people are saying. Like, that could have been bad for USC. So they came out of it. They got the win. That's all that matters. They're satisfied. Nebraska, I'm concerned. You had a phenomenal game from Emmett Johnson. You had the worst game of the season by far. Probably the worst game of Jaden Mayava's career, at least at USC. I don't know. I cannot remember the UNLV years. But you had the worst game. You were at home, and you still lost. Matt Rule cannot beat a ranked team. Like, if you were going into this game telling me that Nebraska was going to run the ball very well in this one, that Jada Mayava would have the worst game basically of his career at USC, I'd be like, oh, great, Nebraska wins. But they didn't win. And USC is a ranked team, and they still can't beat ranked teams. If I'm Nebraska, I'm concerned. I'm concerned with how it got blown out by Minnesota. Concerned that came home, blackout game, huge momentum on the line, and you lose this one. Obviously, Nebraska, they're still going bowling and everything like that. Like, you have your hat to hang on there. But if this team wants to get to 8 wins, you're going to have to beat 2 of UCLA, Penn State, and Iowa. And both UCLA and Penn State are on the road. Like, November is crazy. And Big Ten. I think they beat Penn State. I think. But I don't know that for sure. And Penn State's going to be playing for bowl eligibility there, most likely. So, yeah. If I'm Nebraska, I'm concerned. And your starting quarterback is injured. So, yeah. If I'm Nebraska, I'm concerned. And then finally, last game to talk about is Michigan State and Minnesota. Minnesota, I put in the satisfied category. I thought of putting them in the concerned category. But I went with satisfied because you got the win. That's all that matters. PJ Fleck ties Glenn Mason for 4th most wins in Minnesota head coaching history. Like, you'll take it, you'll move on, right? Like, it's not pretty. It's not necessarily the way you wanted to win, but Drake Lindsay was clutch there at the end, getting the game to overtime and then winning the game in overtime. You had a really good start to the game, 10-0 at halftime, looked really good, and then you crapped it away in the second half. You're able to bring back, come to overtime, but yeah. If you're Minnesota, I don't think you're feeling great. And if you're Michigan State, I mean, you're satisfied, like I said. And if you're Michigan State, you're concerned you don't win another game for the rest of the year. You have Penn State, who, like I said, is going to be fighting for bowl eligibility, at Iowa and Maryland. Yes, that Maryland game is at home, so that's probably your best option there to win a game, but and I think the most concerning thing for Michigan State is this is an awful cycle to fire Jonathan Smith. I think if you're Michigan State, if you fire Jonathan Smith, I don't think you get a very good replacement with all the jobs that are open right now. I don't think you get a very good replacement. This is honestly a situation where Michigan State probably doesn't they probably go like 4-8, 3-9. Like, you switched out your quarterback who people thought, "Okay, quarterback's the issue," and you still lost? Yeah, not great for Michigan State, very concerning. Almost put them in the awful category for blowing the lead late in that one. So, that's what I got for the Big Ten Week 10 performance tiers. Let me know your thoughts in the comments on YouTube. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. If you're listening on podcast, please do 5-star rating. Review. Appreciate all of you doing that, and we'll see you next time on the Big Ten Huddle. Have a good one.